Welcome back again. We're doing more stuff to the Rabbit. The chassis has 270,000 miles on it, so the parts that are made to wear out are wearing out. Like, listen to this wheel bearing. You can hear it as the engine slows down. It kind of sounds like a plane. So obviously we should probably change that. Let's start by getting the car into the air. We can put it on a jack stand for safety. Zip off the lug bolts and pull the wheel. So just about everything here is coming off. The axle nut, it's a screw here that holds on the brake rotor, the caliper, and the mount for that. It's got to come apart from the strut. I mean, just basically everything's got to come off. I got a used but rebuilt set of spindles. They don't have the dust shields on them, but other than that, they're in really great shape and ready to rock and roll. They're very clean to boot, and they came with the screw for the rotor. I pulled the tie rod already. Now I'm going to work on taking the caliper, bracket and all, off at one time. This turned out to be a mistake, but it went fine. These bolts are long, so I'm going to save myself some trouble and zip them off with a gun. Once the caliper is free, you have to hang it up out of your way. I messed with a few different things, but the bungee cord worked the best. I had to move it out of my way a couple of times, so this worked out pretty well. I didn't film using the big bar to break this nut loose. I got this adapter here, so I can put this great big socket on here so I can remove the aforementioned nut. Now I remove the screw that secures the rotor. It's just a tiny little thing. Look at it. And remove the rotor. But I'll also put the screw back where it was so I don't lose it. Reposition the caliper so that I don't hit my face on it when I go down here to undo the ball joint on the control arm. Now I can undo the strut bolts. The top and bottom ones are different. It's made that way so that you can adjust the camber. And I probably showed you it before, but it just kind of has a weird shape to it. You can see how the washers are offset. And the bottom one is more like just a regular old bolt. Nothing special about this. Now we can slide the axle out of the back and move this around a touch to pull it off of the ball joint. And there we have it. So do you want to hear why this is bad? And I can't put the dust shields on because I'd have to take the new bearings apart, and I don't want to do that. So what do those sound like? They don't make a sound. These axles are in terrible shape, and I'm gonna get some, but I need to be able to move the car around. So let's just put it all back together. So we got that on the ball joint. Let's get this old axle into the new hub. I put the bolt through the ball joint. I'm gonna torque these to spec later, but for now, maybe we'll put on the washer and the axle nut. I'm gonna get this as tight as I can by hand because you really can't torque this until you put the tire on the ground. Now I'm gonna use this jack to get it in position inside the mouth of the strut. Now I can put the strut bolts in. I'm not gonna crank them down super hard. I need to figure out how to do some sort of in the garage alignment just so I can go down the street without running into a mailbox. Gonna put the rotor on and the fastener screw to go with it. Taking the caliper and the bracket for it off in one piece didn't work like I thought it would. I was still able to get it into place and back on the car, but it was a lot harder than it should have been. I think I'll remove the caliper from the bracket when I do the other side. But let's tighten down the bracket. And now all the hard stuff is done. I still have to get out the torque wrench and properly tighten everything. I reattached the tie rod end, and now I just have to repeat the process on the other side. This wasn't super hard, and I think I could have knocked it out all in one day if I didn't decide to take a break. I went ahead and torqued down the tie rods and axles, and even though they're in bad shape, I'm not really driving the car around a lot. Speaking of which, it's too late to take the car for a drive, and let's just say the weather is not optimal. I'll take it for a test drive sometime tomorrow. Turns out it's still pretty rainy the next day. You might already notice a difference even with the sound of the wipers, but it's even easier to tell when I shut off the wipers and let up on the throttle. Success. I did the other side of the car on Twitch. It was a really fun night. I played some Forza as well, so if you're into that, come by and follow me on Twitch. Thanks again for supporting me on Patreon and checking out my music and whatnot. I'll see you soon, and don't forget my catchphrase.